Hey guys, Tarke here, and I just want to do a quick trapper tips video for 3.3. Since the last Bay class and since Ziggy's most recent video, I've had a lot of people just messaging me about random trap things, so I'm going to condense everything down to one video. There are still some things we haven't seen yet, so, you know, this is just general advice going through. I'll review some of the new uniques, some of the uniques you don't want to be using anymore, but first let's just talk about some basic things. Let's talk about Ascendancy Options. I've broken it down into 3 options, defensive, damage, and map clear. For defense and utility, Saboteur and Scion are still going to be king, and I'll explain why. Saboteur is a little bit awkward now, with a lot of the traps having their cooldown removed, but you still want to use Chain Reaction for all of your traps triggering, and also the Crazy Regen, Ignite Shock Immune, the reduced mana cost, and that's very important because traps have quite a high mana cost. And then the blind, the damage reduction taken from blinded enemies, etc. One thing to note quickly about Chain Reaction, though, is when your traps trigger, it's your nearby traps. It doesn't mean all your traps globally, just nearby traps. It's still a bit awkward. You still want to have some traps trigger AoE somewhere on the tree, but whatever. The reason why Scion also gets lumped into this strong defensive setup is the Saboteur for Scion is really strong. So you still get 30% global AoE, which is a lot. You get 6% penetration. You still get the 20% regen for your mines or your traps triggered recently. And you still get the 25% chance to blind enemies on hit. So it's really, really good. And then solid things to use alongside it if you want even more defense, especially if you're going for like a low life or a CI option. You can take Guardian, giving you the physical mitigation, all that other stuff, but mostly the every 5 seconds, 20% of your maximum life regen over 1 second. This, plus the 20% regen from this, is just crazy strong defense. You also have the option of Occultist for more curses, more ES recharge, you know, cannot be stunned again for the more like CI-based options. You have Elementalist, gives you more damage, some increased effect of Heralds. Herald of Ash is like a no-brainer, so strong with the extra more damage on there. Then also having the shock hits, giving you a little bit of more damage on there, and the additional golem is kind of decent. You also have Chieftain is very strong for fire-based, you get even more regen, some increased strength, and a 10% chance to recover rare or unique enemies in Ash. Covering enemies in Ash slows rares and bosses, so very strong defense there, and a big more multiplier. So Chieftain is actually pretty solid if you're going for like a fire trap, flamethrower, or cremation trap setup. There are a few other pretty good options, those like the main ones. I could also briefly mention Deadeye is pretty good if you're going for like a lightning trap setup. So those are like the strong defensive ones. For raw damage, Elementalist is very solid. Not only do you get the rotating AoE steroid, which makes map clear feel really solid, you can get extra penetration from Heralds. Now, your traps won't trigger the Herald's secondary effects, but you'll still benefit from the just damage increase of the Heralds. And then, you know, Beacon of Rune, getting the guaranteed shocks and chills is very powerful. Yeah, just nothing really to say here, really strong. I should also briefly mention Occultist will be pretty good if you want to go very defensive. And the fact you can go, you know, Dual Curse CI Val Bastion, so I'd also add that into the defensive option, sorry, for solo play anyway. And then for pure map clear, I would recommend either Inquisitor or Deadeye. Inquisitor's still good. Inquisitor's very underrepresented. Instruments of Virtue alone just makes it a good Ascendancy because it gives you so much attack speed. And having a tiny bit of cast speed on there does help out some of the new 8-second traps. In Ziggy's most recent video, he said she didn't want to really stack it too much, but just having a little bit makes them feel a tiny bit better. And I agree with him from just what I've seen of them, although I haven't played them, unlike Ziggy. And then Inevitable Judgment is obviously very strong. Ignoring all elemental resistances is powerful. However, we have access to so much raw penetration now. You know, in many cases, Elementalist can just pull ahead. And then Augury gives you, you know, more damage and some damage reduction. So just very strong utility with a nice chunk of map clear. The reason why I also recommend Deadeye, it might have been changed, but last time I checked, Tailwind does give you trap throwing speed. Obviously, with something like Lightning Trap having no cooldown now, just getting a more multi on your trap throwing speed is huge. It also gives you more movement speed. Also a solid option if you're planning like a bow-based trapper, so you don't have access to like shield charge. So yeah, just having faster shield charging with the attack and movement speed, having more trap throwing speed, gathering winds is a very big steroid. Alongside that, if you're going, again, lightning trap, the projectile speed and far shot is very powerful. The far shot is only for attack damage though, so that's mostly for the bows, but still, the proj speed is good. Endless Munitions gives you additional proj, is decent for your proj-based traps. AoE will help your trap trigger AoE, and will help your AoE-based traps. And then Ricochet, having the +1 chain and the more damage each remaining chain, again, it will help your proj-based trappers. So yeah, if you just want to go really, really fast, and you don't care about scaling super high into the top content, Deadeye is a decent option there. So that's the Ascendancy breakdown. Now, a lot of people are saying, but Tarke, what about Trickster? I think Trickster is the raider of trap builds. It's the I haven't actually thought about it, and I don't know what this game is. So let's explain why Trickster and Trappers is like, it's okay, but it's really not that great. So people keep saying, but Tarke, you know, you'll be playing these really cool damage over time, burning fire trap builds. The new fire trap does have an increased burn on it, but the ways that degens work is you can't stack the same degen multiple times. It just takes the most powerful one. So in the case of you throwing like 5 fire traps, you don't get to stack the burn 5 times. It just takes the strongest one. So that makes having a trap with no cooldown or stuff like cluster traps feel pretty bad. So you don't really want to be playing a burn base. And if you're trying to do it to hit some crazy single target, you can get more single target using like flamethrower or cremation traps. So you don't really want to be going that way. You want to be going for more the initial hit. And having a little bit of back-end burn damage is just nice, like side stuff. You don't want to be just course scaling that, but anyway. Swift Killer. This is usually like the best thing about Trickster, getting that easy like frenzy and power charge generation. Trappers have easy frenzy and power charge generation, so this is pretty meh. Weave the Arcane is nice. As mentioned, mana costs are kind of the thing. Getting the attack and cast speed is kind of nice. This is solid. Also getting the damage reduction. Weave the Arcane is like the best node, in my opinion, for trappers on here. Patient Reaper. So I've just explained why you don't really be scaling damage time that much. Also, when your traps kill something, the traps killed it, not you. You can guarantee through like Southbound gloves or whatever that the degens always get the kill. But this will be kind of wasted. It won't always be full healing you like crazy. We've explained why damage over time isn't that great. Increased skill effect duration is very bad with traps. So if you're playing a non-saboteur, you don't have chain reaction. Meaning the way that you're going to be triggering your traps is going to be using a Sunblast belt and 2 cheap constructions to get 100% reduced trap duration. Anything which gives you increased skill effect duration gives you increased trap duration, meaning you need to use more of the jewels. And if you don't know, clever construction, if I can spell it, or cheap construction, sorry, is 10% reduced trap duration. So yeah, the duration thing is iffy, and this is just damage. The damage is good. So like Harness the Void, Weave the Arcane is good. You could do like Weave the Arcane, Harness the Void, Escape Artist, but yeah, Trickster Traps is a no-go in my opinion. Some basic trap layouts, like how you want to kind of like plan out your builds, the setups you want to be going for. Siphoning Trap and Bear Trap, it looks like GGG wants every trapper to use these. Siphoning Trap gives you a life and mana heal over time. Bear Trap gives you a more multiplier on single target. So Siphoning Trap and Bear Trap, you're just going to have them as like random floating one links. There's going to be a very big issue, however, with trappers just having enough space on their action bar. So you're going to have Siphoning Trap, Bear Trap, that's 2 buttons, gone. Then you have your clear traps, let's say fire traps, that's gone. Then let's say you use flamethrower trap, that's 4 buttons, gone. Then maybe use like a movement skill, that's 5 gone. And then maybe like a bar. Yeah, they use up a lot of space on your bars. That's one of the main issues you've got going on there. But anyway. Fire trap and then either cremation or flamethrower trap. I think cremation trap is still going to do more damage than flamethrower trap. The main advantage flamethrower trap has over cremation trap currently is cremation needs to be enabled by a desecrate precast. So when we're looking at very starved action bars, that might be one small advantage flamethrower has over cremation. In an ideal world, your ultimate, like, I'm going to pre-burst this boss would be you enter the boss room, you cast Desecrate, you throw a bear trap, you throw 3 cremation traps, you throw 3 flamethrower traps, you then take 1 step forward, you trigger the boss gets instantly bear trapped, everything goes off, and then it falls over. But in all honesty, people were already one-shotting bosses with just the cremation, so the cremation plus the bear trap plus it's overkill. But anyway. For lightning trap, we're going for either lightning trap, then again, either cremation or lightning spire. Cremation is so versatile in the fact that it scales off of projectile damage and area damage, meaning it's perfect for basically any trapper. Not only that, if you're playing, for example, in Inquis, you don't really care about what element type you are. If you're playing a Elementus, you're doing loads of Herald setups, you don't really care about what damage type you are. You get so it's just like global penetration these days, Wise Oak, Shroud of the Lightless even. So yeah, being multiple elements isn't as punishing as it used to be in the past. You could use Lightning Spire if it turns out it does better than Cremation, but I think in many cases Cremation's just going to beat out these new 8-second traps. Then there's Bow Trappers. Bow Trappers are always very strong for boss damage. Their map clear is pretty weak in the fact they just don't move that well. And also they are chained to cooldowns, and they often have quite weak defense. But yeah, Shrapnel Shot, Raid of Arrows, and Blast Round, that's going to be your main setup. You want to be using Shrapnel Shot in any Bow Trapper, just because of collateral damage and point blank, it's just too much damage to pass. Ice Trap, I think Ice Trap's going to be bad. They haven't mentioned Ice Trap once, meaning it probably still has its current 2-second cooldown. And even if they remove the 2-second cooldown, unless they substantially buff the AoE of Ice Trap, it will just be outclassed by Fire Trap and Lightning Trap. So yeah, Ice Trap is just kind of like in the dirt. And also Explosive Trap. Explosive Trap looks good for bossing because it's a Fizz to Ellie conversion skill, and you can use loads of stat sticks. It has no AoE. Even Ziggy said, yeah, it's kind of awkward. So if even Ziggy is being negative on something, that means it's like really bad. So yeah, Explosive Trap will be good for bossing, terrible for map clear. You could maybe do like an Explosive Trap plus EK or Bladeful Trap plus Seismic Trap for clear. Because Seismic Trap has the 8-second cooldown, you can't rely on it for your clear. So yeah, this is going to be like janky. You can do it if you want to, but honestly just do one of these 3 setups. Tinkerskin is really only good for bow trappers now, and I'll explain that why. I would mostly just recommend people use stuff like Combs, Belly, Shabs, Cloak of the Defiance, Lawweave, a rare, etc. I'd like to explain why Tinkerskin is now a trap item. So, the main reason we used to use Tinkerskin was for the cooldown recovery, but now they've removed the cooldown from our clear traps. We only have cooldowns on our bossing traps, and you only need to throw your bossing traps once to kill the boss. So yeah, this is kind of dead. So yeah, this is dead. The Frenzy Charge is dead. There are lots of ways of generating charges on a trapper. They've introduced this new support gem, which gives us power and frenzy charges when our trap's triggered by an enemy. This also gives us more multiplier, crit more multi, and it also gives us trap throwing speed. So you're going to be using this in most setups. You can also currently get power and frenzy charges on the skill tree. So we have the skill tree, we have some ascendancies generating charges, and we have a support gem generating charges. So we really don't need this here. Phasing is decent, but it's really nothing that broken. You can get stronger defensive things from other chest pieces. And now this life recovery thing. So recover 100 life when your trap is triggered by an enemy, not when your trap is triggered. Chain reaction triggers all your nearby traps, meaning you don't get healed like 5 times if you've thrown 5 traps. You only get healed once. So this only ever heals you for 100 at a time, not like 500 at a time. Same with the ES thing here. For people saying, what about all the Eldritch Battery Trappers? That really only kind of existed because of Tinkerskin. You'll still see it for like some builds, but really Tinkerskin is kind of pretty niche now. You don't really want to be building around it. There are just better defensive options. This is very good for us SLSF Trapper players. And on the whole note of charges are really easy to get for trappers, let's talk about the new Trapper gloves. I hate these gloves. They're really good for leveling, because you can whip them at a low level. One important thing to note, all of the uniques we've seen so far which can be upgraded have a line of text saying can be upgraded. These don't have that. They give you Dex. Dex is very nice. You often need Dex on trappers. They give you reduced trap throwing speed, which we'll get back to later. Increased AoE, kind of good. And then increasing reductions to cast speed also apply to trap throwing speed. Now, you already have a negative of trap throwing speed, so you need to get a certain amount of cast speed to make up for the reduced trap throwing speed. Ziggy said himself in his most recent video with Flamethrower Trap anyway, you don't really want too much cast speed, just a little tiny weeny bit. Yes, you could play it in Quiz. Yes, you could play a Deadeye. Yes, you could play a Trickster to try and get a bit of cast speed there. But yeah, it's like... yeah, and if you really want to just go super fast, let's say you just want to go fast, right? And you're like, but Tarke, I need all the trap speed to go as fast as possible. You'd want to use Insanity Gloves, not these. They don't have life on them. Trappers are notorious for having bad defense, so these don't have life. So they're bad for life builds. They also have skills which throw traps have blood magic, which means you can't use them in CI trappers. You could use them in low life trappers, but that's pretty awkward. And then the chance to gain endurance, frenzy, and power charges. We can already get frenzy and power charges very easily. Endurance charges are kind of nice, but not that great. And most importantly, they're not Shaper Gloves. Shaper Gloves are OP. Shaper Gloves give you skills which throw traps, throw an additional trap. This is global. If you don't believe me, I will throw a lightning trap, not linked to anything, not linked in the gloves. I throw 1, 2. For anyone who can't count, that is 1, 2. And then if we drop the gloves, we throw 1. So yeah, having global, your traps throw an additional trap is huge. You can also, in an ideal world, get some essence stuff going on there with Insanity, getting base crit. If you're using Cremation Trap or any, like, non-trap support skill, you can get up to, like, a 7 or 8 link even. So it's like you're giving up a 5 to, let's be realistic, say a 5 to, like, 6, 7 link. You're missing up a... missing out on a global, throw additional trap. You're missing out on life, resist. It's just like... it's too strong not to use. So you're only going to use the blood magic gloves for leveling, and then you're going to want to swap into Shaper Gloves. Now let's talk about Jaws of Agony. Since people keep hyping up the shield, and you're not going to be using the shield. Right. Yes, we want to use Bear Trap. The main issue trappers have aren't sockets. They're not socket starved, like, for example, Summoners. They're action bar starved, like Summoners. You can always get enough sockets, so like saving 1 link on the bear trap isn't the issue. It's about fitting it all on your actual bars themselves. And yes, they give you power charge when you throw a trap, but as already mentioned 50 times, we don't struggle generating charges. Yes, they do give you life, but you can get more life on rare shields. Yes, they do give you some damage, but you know, you could get more damage with like a spell crit shield or whatever. So yeah, Jaws of Agony, you're not really going to be using these on your trappers. And then Kongmings. This is actually a really good shield for bossing. This is very solid for like Uber Elder or something. The reason being is because 30% reduced spell damage taken from blinded enemies. This stacks very well with Born in the Shadows, giving you 40% reduced damage taken from blinded enemies. Really, really strong for certain bosses. And you can also use it very well on a Scion. You don't get the 40%, you only get the 30% reduced spell damage, but yeah, it's pretty solid. If you can guarantee blind in some way, very strong for bosses or any league which is like dominated by spell damage, really great. Sadly, it doesn't have much like raw damage on there or much raw life, but the mitigation it gives you is very powerful. You do miss out on the block chance, but it's worth it, so yeah. You wouldn't really use these for map clear. You use them in very like specific scenarios, but that's kind of like a TLDR of things to think about for trappers going forward. So yeah, do you want to play a more defensive based trapper? You're going to be going for Scion, Saboteur, or Occultist. Raw damage on like Elementalist, and then map clear in Quiz or Deadeye. Trickster is a trap. Don't play Trickster. You can play it if you want to, but you're a Raider player IRL. And personally, I'm leaning very heavily into a fire/cremation or flamethrower trap elementalist. But I will be playing SSF again next league, so I will be reliant on getting the sunblast and cheap constructions before I can play that. So if I want to, you know, league start on a Trapper, I might play a Saboteur or whatever. But anyway, I'm Tarke. Hopefully that helps some people. Have a good day. Bye-bye.